Hi everybody and welcome to the shed. I've got another job that we're doing on this T30 X-Trail. There it is, sitting just over there. And that is the engine mount, the driver's side upper engine mount. So this is the old engine mount that was in it. As you can see, it's slightly worn out. The pin was actually sitting on the bottom there, and that piece of metal there was actually rubbing in the piece of metal that's inside the engine mount there. So when you start it up, it had quite a knocking sound to the engine, and yeah, you took off and it knocked around a fair bit. So definitely need a replacement. It was definitely, I'd say, definitely got money's worth out of that one. Now this is what it should look like when it's repaired. That's a new one. And the little difficulty I found with this one is this engine mount is a two-piece. It's got this casting here which bolts onto the engine. It's got a pin that goes through there, and that pin goes through the engine mount itself there. That's a press fitted pin, so that's a little difficulty with this one here. It can be done at home, so I've did that one myself. So that one there, that's the internal part there of that engine mount. So there it is there. And so what I did with that is I bolted that, or not bolted, but yeah, you could bolt that down a bench. I clamped it down to a bench, and that there pin was that way around on there. And what it is, I got an angle grinder and I ground that metal out through there. So I've ground it just enough so you can see where you start getting your blue colour when you're just about through your metal. So I kept checking and checking and ground it till I got to that stage there. Now you might think that's a bit bad, but I was able to get it out without doing any damage to that pin there. So that was pretty good. I did a little bit of cutting on the shoulder of the pin up here, which doesn't actually affect the strength of the pin at all. So that was a little bit of a mistake because I wasn't sure where the sleeve finished and where the pin started. So but anyway, once I done that, I just grabbed a pair of vice grips and was able to take that off. Now to put the new one back in, there's a little step on the end of that pin there, so you can line that up, and then I used a bit of persuasion with my couple of pound persuader and wooden blocks to get it going, and then after that I set it up in the vise and just wound it in tight the vise. I found it very much easier. This here is on slight taper, the casting is, so I found it much easier to get something like a nut, that one's a bit large, and put it in on there and put that on the vise, the other end on the vise, and got a nice square pull on it, and it went in. A little bit of lubrication grease on the pin as well, and that got that part in. So that there is an engine mount that's ready to go back in. Okay, so I'm just going to go over the car and show you a couple of things with that, and let's see how we go from there. Righto, so here it is here. It's a bit cloudy outside today, so the light in here isn't the best, even though I've got my lights on. It's not the best. So down, I might go get my torch, might make it a little bit easier for that. Alright, let's go back to the bench. Oops, tripped over my airline. Good safety on the floor there. Not much of a trip hazard, but that sort of stuff there. Okay, so down in here, that's where you bolt onto the engine there. You can see right there, there's a steel bolt there that's put into the casting. On the mount itself, there's that one there. You do that one up from underneath, so you've got to get right up inside the engine there from underneath. That's not too easy, but it's not too bad. And then there's this aluminium bolt hole here, and there's a bolt that goes down to there. So when you're bolting these up, that needs to be really clear, no rubbish in there, and the bolt itself needs to be clean as well. This one had a slight bind up. We've cleaned the aluminium out of the bolt and ready to put it back in. So the main thing is there, when you're bolting these up, what I found is wind your engine mount up with the steel stud that's sticking out there and there first. Do not wind the engine up on the aluminium casting part there, because what will happen is you'll bind your bolt to the aluminium and you'll totally strip that thread and wreck that, and then that would mean you'd need to replace that whole part of the mount that's on the engine there. We wouldn't want to do that. There's two bolt holes down there in the subframe, and there is also one back in there, the bolting that all together. The wiring harness here is also strapped to that engine mount. To get it, you need to take the radiator overflow tank out as well. And that's basically it. It's not a huge job. The other thing is, of course, the engine's not supported by itself at the moment, so you need to, here we've blocked up the engine to hold it up off the ground, so that's the best thing to do to keep the engine up. Alright, so next part of the video we'll probably have this in and bolting it together. So there's the engine mount back in. We've got all the bolts done up. So there's that one there, as we said before, the one from the top that bolts down into the aluminium part of the casting, and then the one underneath, and the ones in on the chassis of the car as well. So what we found is we're able to put the engine mount on here. We did up the top one with the nut that we had to do up, the bottom one with the nut we had to do up, and then just jiggle it around a bit, and we're able to do the aluminium one that goes into the aluminium casting behind that. So tighten all the others up first, or not fully. Got the aluminium one started and tightened everything up, and then did the aluminium one. And then we found we had to, with the mount into the chassis, we did the bolt that's right down there at the back first. We had to jiggle it around a bit. Then the one down in here, can't even see it, there it is there. And the one that goes underneath the washer bottles. That's the radiator reservoir bottles. That's all back in. So you go. Not too hard, just got to make sure the engine is jacked up and do a couple of little procedures there. Thank you, thanks for watching.